In the early 1980s, Rick Miller formed the first lineup of Southern Culture on the Skids. Rick had grown up dividing time between his father's home in North Carolina and his mom's home in California. Mary Huff, from Roanoke, Virginia, was a cello major who also played bass guitar. Upon hearing that Rick's band was in need of a replacement bass player, Mary joined and also recruited her longtime friend Dave Hartman on drums. The trio of Rick, Mary, and Dave would go on to become a much-loved, very fun, and extremely talented band who have recorded and toured for several decades now. I've seen them play shows over the years, most recently at the Duck Room in St. Louis. And I had the pleasure of talking with Mary and Rick, who called in from their rehearsal space and studio, the Kudzu Ranch. You're listening to Frets with DJ Faye. No lessons, no technique info. I just talk to people who play guitar. Stay tuned. Mary Huff and Rick Miller, I know you've been very busy touring, and I really appreciate you carving out some time for this today.
No problem. Happy to do it.
You guys have been in the band now for several decades, and I want to get into your beginnings as a band, but I'd like to go back even further. I know the band originated in Chapel Hill, but Rick, you grew up not only in North Carolina, but also spent time in California, or maybe divided time between the two?
Yeah, I grew up in North Carolina until I was about 12 in a little tiny town called Henderson, or Hennison, as the locals call it. And then we moved to Southern California. I know my parents got divorced. My dad moved back to the South, and my mom stayed in California. And my sister and I stayed with her. But we'd have to come back to Henderson and or wherever my dad was living, right, for summers. And, working. My dad had a mobile home factory. I used to come back and work in a mobile home factory during the summer, things like that. So I got kind of a bi-coastal music education.
Yeah. Mary, you're from Roanoke, Virginia?
I am. Roanoke, the Star City of the South.
I thought I was going to ask you. I thought it was called the Star City.
Yeah, Wayne Newton is famously from there. And and nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains of southwestern Virginia.
Nice.
I want to say one thing, though, about...
Yeah, we're going to interrupt each other.
That's
just how we work. So
that's totally fine.
Go ahead.
Growing up, actually, in Henderson, I think contributed to my sort of musical direction very much so, because we only had we had one FM and one AM radio station. And it was I think the city, I don't know what the demographics were, but it was probably about half black, half white. And they had to appeal to kind of a wide audience. So I remember, listening to everything from Buck Owens to Aretha Franklin to the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, to Roger Miller, to, just Booker T and the MGs. It was all over the place. And I think it was a really great musical education, which you don't get too much anymore.
Right. Well, I'm always interested in what music influenced people in their early lives. And then, even when you got to the point where you're starting to play out and record. Rick, you just mentioned some of the bands and artists you were drawn to. Mary, did you have similar tastes, or were they more in a different direction?
Just all over the map. Growing up, my mother had a killer vinyl collection. And so I remember, obviously growing up with the Beatles. That was my first, I think, formed memory is an octopus's garden. And
nice.
I think. But she had stuff like, Jesus Christ Superstar and Iron Butterfly and Edie Gourmet. And, so we'd listen to those records. My dad played a boogie woogie piano. and my mom was in the theater. And then as I got older, yeah, same as Rick, the AM radio stations in Roanoke were, they played a little bit of everything. And then eventually, as I got older, I got into, I played classical music as a kid. And
You played cello, right?
I played cello, yeah. So I did that. And then I discovered, I don't know, Aerosmith. and from there, it was heavy metal. And from then, it was David Bowie and New Wave. And then big punk rock slice was part of my high school. So all the DC hardcore bands and that kind of scene back in the mid 80s. And then rockabilly, which eventually led me to Southern culture on the Skids. So
Nice.
kind of all over the place.
And was cello the first instrument you learned to play?
No, I started piano maybe at 6. So I have one of those musical ears, as my dad would say. And so started piano early, and then cello, because they said they did an outline of my hand in school and said my fingers were long.
Oh.
And I wanted to play the flute or the violin or something girly, but they gave me the cello. So I was saddled with that for the next 10, 11 years. So.
Well, while we're on that subject, Rick, was guitar the first instrument you learned to play?
No, it wasn't. I had it. Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to learn it, but I got one about the same time though. I was in school band, and I had to pick an instrument, and the only one that was left was like a trombone.
No, wow.
So I tried to learn how to play the trombone, but I was a horrible music student. Matter of fact, I remember my band teacher told me that I was totally backwards. He said my feet stunk and my nose runs. So anyway, so that didn't work out. So I tried guitar, right? But my parents got me an acoustic guitar, and they got me some lessons at like the local, I don't know, it was like upstairs in Henderson down by the Methodist church. And it was like all folky stuff, right? And I mean, I just want to learn like, Sunshine of Your Love and stuff. So,
right.
So I remember kind of like they dropped me off, and I just didn't want to learn green sleeves, right? So I remember I'd take off. I'd show up, and then I'd take off, and I go down the street to this place called the Smoke Shop. It was the pool hall, but they had all the titty mags and all that kind of stuff. So that's my rock and roll education.
Wow.
Right there. How I got started on guitar, right?
That's pretty fairly similar to my older brother played trumpet at school, and I thought, well, I think I could do that too. I was horrible. I mean, I just didn't have the lungs for it or something, and I just wasn't into it. So yeah, I pretty early teens, switched to guitar, and that's to this day, that's really the only instrument I play. I fiddle around a little bit on piano, but I've never learned to play properly. But guitar is the instrument I just stuck with.
Yeah, man, I like guitars. It's just, I tell my son, I said, yeah, Jack, I go, man, you should pick up guitar, or you should pick up an instrument, because it's like a psychological thing too. It's just like, I'm never bored. I can always sit down and pick up my guitar and play, and it just kind of mellows your mind. It kind of focuses you, it's meditative. So it's not only a way to make a living if you're lucky, right? But it's also a way just to relax and kind of, be a person,
Although you did give yourself, you gave yourself piano lessons, or took piano lessons in the last.
Well, no, Jack, my son was supposed to take piano lessons, and we had, and I felt bad because he wanted to quit. So I let him quit. And so I just filled in for him for a while because the teacher was a friend of ours.
Didn't you actually learn from Professor Longhair? Didn't you?
No.
Oh, wow.
Are you kidding me? That's my favorite piano player, right? And that scored points with the instructor. But it didn't do any help once I put my fingers on the ivory.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, I want to talk about Plug. Plug makes it easy for you to purchase the personal technology you need at 40 to 70% off retail pricing. What can you get from Plug? Certified pre-owned devices including iPhones, Androids, AirPods, Macs, smartwatches, accessories, and more. I originally didn't even want an Apple Watch, but I got one from Plug and I love it. I wear it every day. Your purchase is backed by their unmatched 1-year warranty and 30-day money-back guarantee. One more very cool thing, Plug is dedicated to helping reduce e-waste around the globe. To date, Plug has helped save over 1 million devices from reaching landfills, and they're looking to double that number by 2025. Link to Plug from the show notes and enter code DJFAY for an additional $10 off your order. Plug Electronics. Check it out. Well, Rick, when you first formed the band, you were an art student, and I think you guys would even practice at school, like in the art lab or something.
We did. We practiced in the art lab where my studio was until we got kicked out. I guess the dean of students lived close by.
Oh,
and
he didn't like it.
We got the word from the head of the art department. It was like, you guys got to move it on out of here. So, but yeah, we used to practice over in the ceramics lab. It was the only place big enough, right?
That's funny.
And, so yeah, we had a good time. But that's when we started my second year of grad school.
Wow. And Mary, you were in a band called the Phantoms, and I think some other like punk groups before joining Scott's.
Yeah. I played in a high school. In high school, I played in a sort of a new wave cover band that we finally recruited Dave Hartman. Dave Hartman used to hang out with my older brother. And our drummer quit, and so we recruited Dave. But yeah, that band was called the Trademarks. You know, I did my best Chrissy Hind back in high school, and then played in, like I said, a hardcore band called Mir. That's M backwards N P, Russian for peace.
Oh, wow!
And a couple other bands I dabbled with when I got to VCU in Richmond, and. But the last band before Southern Culture, it was called the Phantoms. And so, we did Wanda Jackson and Dwayne Eddy and, dabbled in like some Guanabats and some rockabilly. And that's where I just started listening, really hardcore, started listening to the Cramps.
Oh, yeah.
And then discovered Southern Culture on the Skids. And that was pretty much all she wrote right there.
Well, even though your band has the word Southern in the title, I hear a lot of genres being explored or tapped into, rockabilly, like you mentioned, surf, soul, country, even garage rock. Shake's Walk on For Lovers Only even has sort of a Middle Eastern thing going on, I think. So
I love that song.
I do
Thanks
too.
for bringing that up.
Yeah, I was just listening to that the other day, and I love that song too. Well, I love Les Paul's very laid-back album, Lover's Luau, and I can hear some of that when I listen to the title track on For Lovers Only. I don't know, it just reminds me of that. It's very cool and nice and laid back. Unlike Les Paul's, blindingly fast, double speed
well, that's
stuff.
He's speeding the tape deck up.
Exactly.
He was 88.
He was a tech head, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that goes right back to, I think, for me anyway, growing up in Henderson and listening to all that different music when I was such a young kid. It just made me realize that, good music's good music, right?
Right.
It doesn't have to be this or it doesn't have to be that, regardless of style. Good music is good music. And, we used to spend so much time in thrift stores that, man, the easy listening stuff, I mean, that's when you used to buy records just based on the covers.
Oh,
and they had the best covers, right?
Oh, yeah.
The best covers. I love all that stuff. But you're right. We have a lot of different music. And it's like I've said before, it's like our music is kind of like a Southern plate lunch where you got your meat, your potatoes, your lima beans, right, your turnip greens, and it all sitting on the side, and it all kind of runs together in the middle the more you eat it. You know what I mean? The best bite, the last bite's the one right in the middle.
Yeah. I want to talk about the days when you started recording and touring. And before we get into that, we absolutely need to talk, I think, about the origin of your look. And I want to start with Mary. And Mary, tell me if I'm getting this right, but wasn't like the beehive hair and go-go boots and all that, was that inspired by your mom?
It really was. Yeah. She she did local theater. And so she would drag me and my brothers and, we'd hang out in the basement of like this, it was called Showtimers, this playhouse. And I would kind of like wander around in the wigs and all the costuming and all that good stuff. But yeah, I mean, mom was a model for a short while and had like the best, beehive kind of bouffant going, and her clothes were great. And so back then I could still wear the same size when I joined the band in 87. And so I would just raid her closet and get all the great, capris and everything that she had. So yeah, very much inspired by mom.
Well, I think we all need to thank your mom for your. It's a great look.
Thanks, Mom.
Thank you, Mrs. Huff.
I'm still finding good stuff. I was just up there and raided her closet yet again.
Oh, nice.
Taking it to California in 2 days. So yeah.
And Rick, you and Dave both wore overalls a lot. I think over the years, and maybe, I don't know, early on or.
Well,
free balling.
When I was, I kind of like the bibs because they only touched me in a couple places.
Oh,
So, and we used to play some really hot, miserable punk rock clubs all over the country, the world, basically. Plus, you just have two pair of overalls, man. It's just easy to keep track of, easy to put on, easy off. And my grandpa was a dairy farmer.
Oh.
And I always thought, well, he wore bib overalls to work every day. I guess I can too, right? Just keeping it in the family.
Right.
And, and it kind of went along with the kind of, sometimes people ask, well, what kind of music do you play? And I'd say, oh, well, we play surrealism, right? So it kind of kept in, with the rural, RFD aspects of some of our music.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Well, the bass player's punking and the drummer's kicking in, and I'm just trying to find a place to fit in. The front man's up front, and that's where he ought to be. But if you listen real close, you might hear me. I'm playing rhythm guitar. Hey, 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 hey. I'm playing rhythm guitar, and it feels okay. I go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Ben Vaughn's radio show, The Many Moods of Ben Vaughn, is broadcast from Parts Unknown, USA. I guess we'll never know where that is exactly, but we do know Ben grew up in Philly on the New Jersey side of the river. When he was only 6, his uncle gave him a Duane Eddy album. That record would have a profound impact on Ben, who was playing drums in a garage band by the time he was 12. His interest then turned to the guitar. Ben has been recording, performing, touring, and providing scores for films and TV theme songs for years now. He still finds time to host what, in this fan's opinion, is one of the greatest radio shows on the airwaves. My Talk with Ben Vaughn is available in Season 2 of Frets.
I go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Let's ride.
Hey, this is Rick Miller from Southern Culture on the Skids, and you're listening to Frets with DJ Fade.
Well, speaking of clubs, after you began recording and releasing albums, you guys toured a lot. Any good stories from those days on the road? I'm thinking like were there any memorable experiences that were either good or maybe bizarre at some show, or just, I'm sure you've seen a lot over the years.
I mean, really too many to mention, but if you're going to pick a couple.
Probably the one stretch that was the worst is when our van broke down in eastern Montana.
Oh.
We were stuck in eastern Montana for like 10 days. And they had to fly an engine in, right? It was in a town called Glendive, which is a nice town. But we broke down like a little bit outside of town. And the hotel we were at was about 2 or 3 miles from downtown, or the closest beer store. And so we were stuck there for, I don't know how many, like I said, 10 days. On the 6th day, I think, I remember I called them and they said, your van is all ready. The engine's here. We just can't get it done because the mechanic can't make it in today. His horse is sick.
The horse was sick.
His horse was sick. So his horse got better, right? So we got it fixed and we took off. And we got about, I don't know, 60 or 70 miles to a place called Miles City, Montana, where it threw a rod again, right?
Oh, no.
So, so at this point, I called them up and they were like, well, we can't get a tow truck to you. And AAA, man, the guy, there's only a couple tow trucks in Montana, I guess, at the time. And, one of them was like somewhere else. And he said, I can't get there. But I got a friend who has a trailer. He's going to come and get you and bring you back, right? And we'll get this fixed. So this guy shows up in Miles City with like a 6-cylinder Jeep truck and a trailer that barely fit our 15-passenger van, right? I mean, the wheels were right on the end of it, on the end of his trailer, right? It looked like pretty lightweight setup, right, to tow a truck or our van on the highway, right, for 60 miles, 70 miles. And sure enough, and the guy had, I swear, I thought the guy, he had one glass eye. He had one good eye. And when everything was fine until we got on the interstate. And when we hit the gas on the interstate, if we went over 20 miles an hour, the front end of the truck would come up and we couldn't steer.
That's not a good thing.
No.
Now we've got 2 guys in the van.
And there was only room for 2 of us to have with him. The other 2 guys are laying down in the van because they can't be seen because it will get busted, right? Because you're not supposed to have anybody in the truck that you're towing.
Wow.
So it took us going, 15 miles an hour to go 60 miles. It took us like 8 hours.
Man, oh man.
So, and then every time the guy was full of stories, though. I got to say it was an entertaining ride. But every time he'd get to a punchline or a story, he just had to look at you. And his one good eye was on the was on the left side. So he had to turn all the way around to see you and get your reaction, right? And then he'd step on the gas and the front end would come up and go all over the freeway.
You can hear Dave screaming,
Wow. Wow.
Right.
That's a classic. That's a classic story.
Yeah.
Well, it went on and on and on.
It just seemed to go on and on.
Man, oh man.
Yeah.
And then that same van, right? A year later, we're out touring, and in Eastern Washington State, something happens again to the engine, right? So we pull over. What was the name of that town? Do you remember?
It's where they filmed Twin Peaks.
No. That was the other place where we stopped. That was closer into Seattle. Anyway, we stopped there. It was the week Capitol Hall of Fame was there. Remember? But
it was the week of cowboy art shows. I know that.
It was that, but that came in later because what happened there was we had to be in Canada. We had a big festival in Bellingham that we needed to be at, and we were just like every business had the same name on it. So we just thought like, oh shoot, we're gonna be stuck here for a while, right? Because it's all kind of one family. Anyway, I said, do you have anybody that would just trade our vehicle? Trade us? Because we have to get to Washington State out Western Washington for shows and stuff. We're just losing money right and left. And he said, I think I do have somebody.
Oh my God.
So he calls up his buddy, and his buddy comes down, and what he's got a Chevy short bed van that used to be a Pacific Bell van, right? A Pacific Bell van.
Just the lightest, primer gray over it, just barely covering
over parts of it, right?
Parts of it.
So we were just like, well, does it run? And he said, yeah, it runs. And deal done, right?
Short bed.
We unloaded our stuff, and we got it in there and stuff. And the guy handed me a screwdriver instead of the keys. And I said, well,
as the sun's going down,
right? I said, well, man. I said, do you have the keys? And he goes, don't need a key. Don't need a key. Starts with a screwdriver. You just tap it over the solenoid, right? And I'm like,
wow.
Whoa. But undeterred, we just said, fine, give me the screwdriver. Right.
Yeah, the show must go on.
Yeah. So we hit the road. Okay. We didn't know it, but there was 3 different size tires on it. So we couldn't go over like 30 miles an hour again, right? Or it would just wiggle all over off the road. So,
This is like a
so we drove
cartoon.
it-
This whole thing's
we
like
drove
some
it at 35
hilarious
miles an hour.
cartoon.
And we stopped about 2 or 3 different places on the way because it was really desolate out there. And we couldn't get a hotel room because there was a cowboy art show.
Cowboy art
Ah.
show.
I said, what? So anyway, we drove all night. We got to outside, it's about an hour outside of Seattle. We found a guy that would change the tires, fix the brakes. The steering wheel, like hardly, it moved all over the place. There was so much play in the front end.
And this was a like a utility van.
And he
so-
rekeyed it.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm not supposed to do this. He said, I'm going to need to see the pink slip. And I said, oh, okay. Well, here's the pink slip. And I realized it didn't have the guy's name on it that sold it to us or traded it. It was somebody else's name. So
Getting
I
ready to
said,
cross into Canada. by
right.
the way.
I go, oh my God, we got to do a border crossing. And like, are we in a stolen vehicle? Like, I was like, what? So luckily my mom's husband, not my dad, but her husband was a judge in California. So I called him up and I said, hey, Chuck, I said, I think I got a stolen vehicle, but I got to do a border crossing tonight to go play in Vancouver. I said, what should I do? And he's a judge, right? And he goes, whatever you do, don't go to the police. He goes, they'll just stop you. You'll never get anywhere. He said, you just have to take your chances. So, he rekeyed it because he knew he was in a band himself, the locksmith. And sure enough, man, we went to Canada and we drove that van like for 3 weeks, all up and down the West Coast.
Wow.
Now Mary had to sit in a lawn chair.
Yeah.
Right. Because there was only 2 seats in the front. And I think the passenger door had to be held on with a bungee cord.
Yes.
Because it didn't, right?
I just kind of laid my feet on top of the cooler in between the.
So anytime we brake, it had to brake fast. Mary come flying forward in the lawn chair. It was like crazy.
That's great.
And
So we made it.
a Geffen, right?
Yeah, we did. And with that van, it was such a piece of crap that. But it ran. I
wish we still had it.
I do too.
It's like the mystery machine.
Yeah. Anyway, we got down to LA and we were and we needed to get rid of it. We couldn't keep touring in it. It was okay to go up and down the West Coast.
The
but
fumes were going to
needed
kill us.
Yeah, no, it's just too dangerous, right? So we went to Geffen and we parked it in front of Geffen Records on Sunset Strip, right? This total piece of junk. And just said, we need a new van.
Yeah.
You need to give us
It's like
money.
we were one record in.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to give us some money so we can continue touring and making this record sell. Right. And they were like, I said, well, we're going to leave it right there. And we're going to spray paint on the side of it. Geffen sucks. Okay. Give us some money. So they gave us like 17 grand. And we went out the next day. I remember we went to Tustin Auto Park and we bought a Ford Econoline and took off for a gig in Vegas. And we got over the Vegas border, and that van threw a differential, right? The drive shaft fell off.
Oh, wow.
So that's where we got the song 40 Miles to Vegas.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it all worked out in the end, right? We got it fixed. It was warranted. You know what I mean? We toured in that van, put 300,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How's that?
You served up a story for me.
Yeah.
That's great.
Hopefully your podcast can run along here.
The nitty gritty goes, yeah, boom. The nitty gritty goes.
Looking to buy a guitar, an amp, pedals? Find great deals on all of these as well as audio and recording gear at reverb.com. You can also sell your gear through Reverb. They have great articles about music gear and bands. And Reverb believes music makes the world a better place. That's why they created Reverb Gives, that provides youth music education programs all over the world with the instruments they need to make music. Link to Reverb through Frets with DJ Faye in the show notes for this episode.
Hi, this is Mary Huff from Southern Culture on the Skids, and you're listening to Frets with DJ Faye.
Another interesting thing, though, as far as touring or playing out, we did a prison tour of the state of North Carolina. We played almost all the prisons, except we didn't do Maximum over in Raleigh, where Death Row is at the time. But we played all the prisons. We played women's prisons, men's prisons. We played youth facilities, youth correctional. We played infirmary. We did the prison hospitals. And that was incredible. We played with a blues band and a gospel band. And that's where I just got so impressed by the gospel guys. Yeah. Man, they were just killing it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Killing it. The Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
It's real.
One of my favorite songs is Irma Thomas, Hittin' on Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
You've covered that with Mary on vocals. Do you guys have a recording of that, or is it just something you did in your live sets?
No, we have a recording. It's on Liquored Up and Lacquered Down.
It is on Liquored Up. Oh, of course.
It's going to get, we were just working on a reissue. I actually had the original mixtapes, the 1/2-inch mixtapes, and I baked them down for about 24 hours and took them over to a friend of ours, Mitch Easter, and we recorded that on a Dolby C machine, mixed it anyway, and he decoded it and sent me back some high def files, and we are going to remaster it, add 3 bonus tracks, and it should be out in the fall. And we're going to do CD and vinyl. But
nice.
Yeah.
So you listened to Hitting on Nothing about 25
I did.
times
So
in a
yeah.
row
So it's
last
funny
week.
you brought that up because I've just listened to it over and over and over again.
Thinking about working it up at practice here today, but I don't know. We got enough time.
I love that song.
Yeah. Irma, she's still doing great.
Is she?
Yeah.
I can't.
Queen of New Orleans.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Still performing.
Good for her.
Yep.
Yeah, I've included that track on playlists that I've made for people, and it's just always been a favorite. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine and I were just talking recently about how much we love the film Flirting with Disaster. Your song, Red Beans and Reverb, was on that soundtrack. How did that come about? Did they just approach you and say we'd like to use the song, or what was the story?
No, that was another total kind of fluke in a way. When we got signed to Geffen, we had just finished putting out a record called Ditch Digging, and they wanted some songs. And we said, well, we just got done touring, and they wanted us, I think this was in August or September, and they wanted us to be ready to record a full-length record in January. So they said, well, we'll give you some money, and we want to hear some demo songs. Well, at the time, we were rehearsing in an old gas station right outside of town, right in one of the bays. And I remember they gave us $10,000, and we split it 4 ways, with the band being the 4th partner. And I remember we bought an 8-track tape deck, a Tascam 8-track tape deck, couple SM58s, some mic cables, and we had some stands, and a little Mackie board, a 16x4 Mackie board. And we started cutting some songs, right? Cutting some demos and recording them on the 8-track. Well, Soul City was one of those, White Trash was one, Dirt Track Date. And on the strength of those, they said, good. But there was a couple other songs, too. There was one called Red Beans and Reverb, and was it BSA 441? I can't remember. I think that was it. From that whole session that we did totally green in a garage, right?
Oh, wow.
8-track tape machine. And
but
sure
the
enough,
reverb was just right, really. On that,
but Red Beans and Reverb was one of those songs, and when it got picked to be, we were on Geffen at the time, and they took the song as a demo, but it never came out on a record or anything. But they did get it placed in that movie, so it's kind of wild that happened, right? That even happened, but that was recorded in a gas station outside of Carrboro, North Carolina.
Nice.
Yeah, and it ends up in a movie.
Well, don't forget Camel Walk made it in there too.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Well, but
They're having tantric sex. I think Mary Tyler Moore mounting George Siegel to that song.
well, that, I mean, I am very proud of that moment that I could be there, like, with a song. But Camel Walk is another one of those strange things that it was total filler. Again, for Dirt Track Date, we were pressed for songs, and we ended up, they wanted a couple more songs, and we were kind of like, well, what can we do? Well, let's go back in the catalog and see if there's something that came out on a single or is relatively obscure that we could re-record and throw on here that they'd be okay with. And our producer, engineer, Mark Williams, said, I always liked that song Camel Walk that you guys did on Zontar Records, because we did a little single on Zontar Records called Santo Viva de la Santo. And he said, let's just re-record that. So we did, right? And it was total filler. And I think we toured for a full year on Dirt Track Date before that got played at like one of those, like a modern rock station in Tampa, Florida. And the DJ said, hey, this song's got legs. This is going to do something. And I remember radio people called us up and they said, hey, you guys, it's going to hit. You guys get ready. You got to go back out on the road.
Like Camel Walk?
Camel Walk?
What?
Because they were playing Voodoo Cadillac and Soul City on the AAA. AAA was really big at that time for radio for us. And anyway, so yeah, Camel Walk came out and boom, all of a sudden it's getting played on these modern rock radio stations. And, we were going from touring and doing our indie thing for, playing in, maybe 80 people, next time 100 people, maybe 120 the time after that, to playing, in front of thousands of people, and just because they like Camel Walk. So it was just kind of blew my mind, right? And I mean, when the people think of us, they think of Camel Walk.
That's great.
But it was a total fluke.
If you're a podcast addict like me, you might have thought about starting your own. I'm having a lot of fun creating and sharing my podcast, Frets with DJ Faye. It seemed daunting at first, and I had no idea how to proceed after recording my first episodes. Then I discovered Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped over 100,000 people, even knuckleheads like me, launch a podcast. The tools they provide make it incredibly easy to get your thing going. They'll also help you get your podcast into all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and more. You get a great-looking website, audio players to drop into other websites, analytics, and tools to promote your podcast. To get a no-risk free trial of Buzzsprout, or to find out about their low-cost monthly plan options, follow the link in today's show notes and let them know that DJ Faye sent you. Learn the ins and outs of podcasting through people who eat, drink, and breathe it. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast. Now, back to mine. We mentioned Geffen. I guess the bulk of your recent albums were all recorded at your own facility, the Kudzu Ranch?
That's correct. Well, once we did that thing for Red Beans and Reverb and we got a check, I'm like, whoa, this recording racket's not bad.
Yeah.
But we always knew too, I think from day one, that the bands that wrote their own material were the bands that survived.
Right. Well, I think Dex Romweber's recorded there, right?
Oh yeah, man. I love Dex.
Yeah, I really
When
want
I
to get
came to-
Dexter. I want to get Dexter on the show. So.
Oh yeah, you should. You should. Matter of fact, I can help you with that probably. When I moved to town to go to grad school, Dexter was my neighbor, and he was in like 7th or 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go see Flat Duojets, just in really tiny, small clubs. I saw them once in St. Louis, and about 12 people showed up, but Dexter played as if there was like a stadium full of 10,000 or whatever. He just poured it out, man. It was great. It was really, really cool.
Oh, I love Dexter.
He's
my favorite local band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I talked with Florence Dorr back in season 1 of the podcast, and we were talking about the compilation cover charge that was to benefit Cat's Cradle, and there's a track on that as well. At least one track, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Mary, you contributed on Florence's album Highways and Rocket Ships.
Yes. Yeah.
She's great.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that record is fantastic.
It really is.
Every one of her songs is a hit song, in my opinion. And I was very honored for her to take part of singing a little harmony on that song.
Yeah, it's a great album. I bought the vinyl on that. I'm slowly rebuilding back up my vinyl collection. I got a pretty good turntable these days, and I'm loving stocking up on vinyl.
Yeah.
So.
Now that it only costs you, 30 or 40 bucks to
Right.
replace everything. But
exactly.
yeah, we love Florence, and she's been really busy promoting a record this year, and it's great. And I listened to your interview with her, and
oh, good,
a great interview as well.
What was it? Our song on that was "Let's Work Together."
That's right. That's right. On the
yeah, man.
cover
Wilbur
chart.
Harrison. I am a huge Wilbur Harrison fan.
She talks about that song and about him being the composer of that in the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, Canned Heat. I think most people know it as Canned Heat.
Right.
And that's probably the first time I heard it was Canned Heat.
Sure.
But I'm a sucker for some serious boogie.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Canned Heat fan.
Right.
But Wilbur, when I discovered, that's how so many of us, I guess, from my generation, Mary's generation, your generation, probably discovered music was in music stores.
Oh yeah.
And listening to people that might be your age or bands that you knew covering songs. You know what I mean? And you go, well, wait a minute, they didn't write that. Who wrote that? And you look it up, and you just go, oh man, it's like I remember when I was young, I loved "Summertime Blues" by Blue Cheer, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, wow, but who wrote that? And I saw this guy named Cochran. And I remember going to like Tower Records and digging through the bins. I go, yeah, Eddie Cochran.
Eddie Cochran.
And they're like, oh yeah, right over there. And the United Artists reissue double record set. Man, I got that, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this good? Right? Oh, I loved it.
It's great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was so fun to see you guys in St. Louis recently. I love that you closed the show with Dear Mr. Fantasy, powerful vocals on that by Mary, and then Rick, that was a pretty amazing guitar solo. That was just an incredible finale to that show. It was so fun. It was great.
He's got some whammy thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while you got to get in touch with your inner psycho.
That was so great.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's really fun song. I always love that song.
Yeah.
Love the psych.
Yeah.
I mean,
And Mary does a great job singing.
Yes, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, what's on the horizon for the band? Or will you be able to take a break? I know you guys have been touring and touring and touring.
We just got caught up with everything that we was on the back burner from COVID.
Yeah, we did our last COVID makeup gig this month.
Yeah, St. Louis was it.
Oh, okay.
No, it was St. Louis.
Yeah, St. Louis. Well, St. Louis, Omaha, maybe Iowa City, and that was it. Now we're all caught up. We're going back to California, and we got August off. We're working on a new record.
Great.
That's the nice thing about having a studio is that when you're back, you can always kind of make the most of your time working on some new stuff.
Dave's on the way. We're gonna practice.
We still rehearse.
Fly out to California Sunday, 3 a.m. Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, we still rehearse. I thought about that the other day. I was thinking, I wonder how many bands have been together for like almost 40 years, still rehearse.
Yeah, that's great. When you've got the place to do it.
Yeah, we do. Well, it's fun too. Well, maybe not all of them have to rehearse. Sometimes I think we do.
Mary Huff and Rick Miller, thank you guys so much for this. This was great.
Thank you so much, Dave. We love the Frets podcast.
Yeah,
Oh,
thanks,
I love
Dave.
hearing that. I love hearing that.
We'll see you next year in St. Louis.
I'll hook you up with Dex.
Well, mama's hard at work. She's on back in that kitchen. Day old banana pudding. And daddy's on the sofa. He's a moaning and a bitching. Day old banana pudding. Now I need something good and a sweet to eat, baby. Day old banana pudding. Or something that's easy on my gums and my teeth. Day old banana pudding. Well, it takes a little time to develop that flavor. Day old banana pudding.
Thanks for tuning in to Frets with DJ Faye. If you like the show, you can subscribe for free at most podcast platforms. Hope you'll join me again next time. Stay tuned.
I think I'm going to grab my coffee.